Juvenile third-degree criminal sexual conduct by way of force or coercion. I'm criminal defense attorney Ryan Pacyga, and I'm going to tell you a story about a case that brought a client of mine, a 13-year-old kid, and his parents through hell and back. And it happened right here in Minnesota, and it just ended yesterday in a complete dismissal of his charges. But there's a story behind it, and it's important because I want to give you the value of a good investigation and tell a story from what could have happened. And the story begins with this. A year ago in the summer, two kids were together and they were around a group of friends. And two of them run off. And one proposes to my client to have a sexual act in the form of oral sex. And my client had agreed to it. And it was very brief, less than 5 seconds. And then both of the kids then left the little area where they were doing that privately, rejoined the group of friends. They all played for a minute, and then they kind of went their separate ways. Later on, as in weeks later, something comes out where the one kid said that our client made him or her do it. And this began to be pursued then eventually by law enforcement, where the kids were all talking about it. Law enforcement decides, after the accuser's mother hears about this, law enforcement decides that they're going to investigate this because the mother calls police, of course. And Child Protective Services got involved as well. So law enforcement comes and they interview the accusing kid first, who says that he was forced into this situation, and that wasn't his idea, and that he was forced into it. Law enforcement interviews the other kids, who said, yeah, that's what eventually he said, how it went. And then law enforcement interviewed our client. Now, at the time, I did not represent the kid. The kid's parents, when they get the call, they brought their kid in to interview with law enforcement without calling a lawyer or anything, kind of like a lot of parents want to do. Hey, if you've got nothing to hide, you've got the truth on your side, come in and talk to law enforcement, right? And I believe in this particular situation, the officer was acting in good faith. Some are, some aren't. They're human too, but regardless, the officer did a full interview. The client, who wasn't a client at the time, but admitted it, but said, no, this was his idea, not mine. There was no force involved. In fact, it was his idea. But nonetheless, while the prosecutor, or while the officer indicated that he believed our client in the report, again, before he's my client, officer has an obligation, once they finish their investigation, to forward the packet of information over to the prosecutors, called the county attorneys, who then make the charging decision. Well, despite the officer saying he believed our client at the time, who again wasn't a client at the time, the prosecutor still charged it out. So now the kid is charged with a criminal sexual conduct in juvenile court, which can be a life-altering event, even though it's in juvenile court, for a variety of reasons, including potentially registration as a predatory offender and some other things that can happen. Then the family gets a lawyer, all right? Court process starts. We're initially trying to tell the prosecutor, get us all the evidence as fast as you can, because I wanted to make sure that we conducted our own investigation, and that's what we did. After we got the reports called discovery, we went out and investigated and talked to witnesses and things like that. And one of the main witnesses here, who said that the accuser said that our client made him do it and so forth, while we interviewed that witness, we had to approach that the right way. This is a young teenager witness as well, who I wanted to approach it through her parents, because some lawyers will just attack and go right to the kid and try to find them. Parents aren't going to like that. They might shut it all down. I think it's generally a better approach for parents to talk to parents and be very transparent about it and just say, hey, we want to talk to your child about this is what we want to do. You can listen in if you want and so forth, and protect your kid and all that. And we approached that the right way. Fortunately, the child's mother was willing to allow us to interview that child that way. And the conversation was going along, and it sounded like, uh-oh, this really is sounding like what was said in the reports, until the very end, where the child says, I've got something else to tell you. The accuser, weeks later, admitted to her that he had lied about it. And that changed everything. And it was organic. It came up out of nowhere. My jaw dropped. And at that point, we immediately let the prosecutor know about this as well, had a signed statement from this person, and encouraged the prosecutor then to drop the case or send law enforcement out to re-interview this witness to find that out, because this was new information. To our frustration, the prosecutor took quite some time to follow up on it, months, and this wasn't fair. And I was bringing this to the attention of the prosecutor and bringing it to the attention of the judge, saying this needs to happen. In the meantime, the child, the defendant that we represented now, had to leave school because they went to the same school. The kid got a no contact order through the court. It was too much for the school to dealing with them both in there, and this kid was feeling like he had to walk on eggshells the whole time. So now the kid went to distance learning, our client, while this was all going on. In the meantime, by then we're knowing this is a false allegation. But this is what happened to this family. We kept pushing it to the head, and we were going to have a probable cause hearing about it. And I stayed on the prosecutor about this. Eventually, one day before the hearing, yesterday, the prosecutor sent over this notice of dismissal. The entire case is dismissed. But I want to talk to you about what could have happened. There were so many what ifs here. What if this accuser wouldn't have admitted to one of the other kids later in the process that he lied about the accusation? What would that have looked like? The case wouldn't have been dismissed and we would have ended up in a trial. And you never know what's going to happen in trial, but certainly our client could have been found guilty, perhaps, even if it's a he said, she said. What if this kid would have still told this witness, yeah, I lied about it, but this witness never got to talk to us, either because this witness's parents wouldn't let a lawyer interview their child, or because this witness's parents didn't want to have their kid involved in it, or because maybe this witness we didn't handle our interview right with the witness and make them comfortable enough to be able to tell the truth, and make their parents comfortable enough that we were on a genuine truth-seeking mission, as opposed to trying to put words in somebody's mouth or something like that. What if the prosecutor wouldn't have eventually done the right thing and dismissed it? Any of those things could have happened, and then you end up in a trial. And at a trial, anything can happen. I can tell you that from experience. Anything can happen. So everything had to come together the right way, and we did our job a really good way, and I'm proud of my staff and how we did that. But the hell that these parents went through for about a half a year with their son being accused of a serious crime that he didn't commit. The mental toll that this took on the parents. I sat there in a room with them, and I looked into a mother's eyes that I never knew before this case. And she cried and she said, help my son. The father looked at me man to man and said, help my son. We don't know how to protect our son. The boy looked at me, too young to truly appreciate the gravity of this, but old enough where he knew he was going through hell. And all I could do is look at those parents and say to them, I can't promise you an outcome when this process started, but I can promise you that I'll treat your kid like he's my own. And I'm glad we followed through on that promise, because if this wouldn't have worked out the right way, this kid would have been branded a sexual predator for life. This kid may have had trouble getting into college someday. This kid may have had a hard time even staying in the same high school where he's growing up. This kid may have been harassed in his neighborhood forever. This kid may have had to make lifetime disclosures to social services. This kid may not have been able to get some careers in the future, even if it's a juvenile crime. Maybe medical doctor, maybe a sports coach, maybe being a teacher, maybe having trouble being a parent someday. Maybe high security clearance with the military or law enforcement, and a host of other jobs. All because of a lie, and all because had everything fallen into place, had it not fallen into place the way it should have and did, one little difference could have made all the difference in the world for this kid's entire future. His parents were heartbroken and helpless when they came in the door here. But they leave now knowing, feeling like the justice system worked for them. And we're grateful for that today, but I don't take it lightly that things could have gone much differently. The lawyer you hire in these kind of cases makes a difference. Sometimes even with the right lawyer, the right facts don't come into play, and no lawyer can promise an outcome, but I can promise you that we'll give you everything we have. And I wanted to pass that message along today and maybe give hope to some others that are going through this. If you have more questions or if you're facing a false allegation, I'm criminal defense attorney Ryan Pacyga. You can call me at 612-339-5844 or find me at arrestedmn.com.